Are you able to protect Toronto's Jews? It's a pretty simple yes-no question, and I would imagine that you would say yes, but you just simply haven't been able to.
Sir, we have our officers are deployed every week and every day in communities that are experiencing disproportionate violence.
It's not fixing things. It's not stopping the shootings.
Well, we made an arrest last night, an investigation very quickly. It's because of our deployments in the area that assisted in making this arrest.
Do you need the OPP for help? Will you ask for help from the OPP or RCMP?
This conference is ended, sir. Just-
And I'm not done answering questions because they haven't been answered properly. Run away. Well, I'm standing outside a synagogue. You wouldn't necessarily know it's a synagogue because they've taken down every outward sign that it's a synagogue. There's no Star of David's on it. There's no name on it. That has all been taken down because of the 2.5-year anti-Semitic crime wave in Toronto. They want to sort of hide their presence because almost every day in Toronto there's another shooting or punching. And actually just a few days ago there was an outright murder, a daytime execution-style murder of a Jewish man in the park. And so a synagogue and a school like this doesn't want to be seen. Well, it didn't save them. Last night, someone was driving by on the road and started shooting at identifiable Jews, Orthodox Jews, on the street. And there was another shooting elsewhere in the city. Bathurst, which goes north and south, is a major route in Toronto, and adjacent to it live probably most of Toronto's Jews, myself included. And so many of the Jews are visible. If you wanted to commit anti-Semitic crime, it would be so easy to do so, and indeed it has happened. But the crime is much more than one of opportunity. These are planned terrorist-style events. And I remind you that there are 700 members of the IRGC terrorist group that the government of Canada knows about in this city. And then there's the pro-Hamas activists. And then there's just latent anti-Semites who have come over in our Open the Doors mass immigration project. Anyway, so I got in my car and I started looking for this synagogue. I actually went to another synagogue first because there's a number of them. There were police outside it too. I thought it was the shooting. No, they said different crime scene. So they sent me over here. Here's a little bit about how that went. This is a video I recorded this morning, but come right back afterwards because I've got a lot more updates for you, including when I scrummed Toronto's deputy police chief on it. You'll find that interesting. Come right back. Oh, by the way, this is the synagogue I was just at. I don't know if you recall, but over there are some school buses that are parked. And not too long ago, one of them was torched, completely burnt to a husk. It was a school bus for a Jewish school. The media said it was a truck that spontaneously burst into flames, and they didn't mention that it was a terrorist attack. Like I say, this happens every day in Toronto. Raphael, tell me, what's your connection to this facility? Is it a synagogue or a school or a bit of both?
It's a Jewish synagogue, and it's my synagogue. I pray here every day. We come here, we pray, we celebrate here, we have Shabbat over here. So that's the place where I go every day.
And what happened and when did it happen?
So last night we finished our evening prayers, and I was standing actually right here. It's east part of the synagogue, and the other guys, they came out from the other entrance. It was the Bathurst Street entrance of synagogue. And what I heard, 10 evening time, a car was passing by, rolled down the window, and somebody shoot one of the member of our synagogue using the BB gun.
So he actually hit the...
That's right. He hit the member of our synagogue at his arm.
And was it a grievous wound? Did it just hurt? Like did it puncture his clothing?
Yeah. I mean, this time, thank God, nothing happened. He didn't require any medical assistance, but it was BB gun, and thank God it was not the head, it was the arm. But it's yeah.
That's shocking. So this was around 10:10 last night. Then what happened? I take it someone called 911 pretty quickly?
Yeah, so we called Shomrim, and Shomrim is the Jewish police. They called police right away, and thank God everything was very fast. Police came very fast. They were very helpful, and they were here with us, and they went upstairs to see the video cameras around the synagogue, and they were able to locate the guy and arrest the guy this morning.
Really? So he's been arrested. Do we know any information about him?
I have no idea, but I heard he was arrested, and I hope he will stay in the jail or something, going to be not be let on the streets and God forbid do something else again.
So there, I take it someone was driving the vehicle and then someone was shooting. So there were two people in the vehicle?
That's correct. The passenger rolled down the window and shot the guy and took off.
Now, how about the political leadership, the mayor, the premier, the prime minister? Have they said anything that you know about? Like, it was a shooting,
yeah.
and it's been half a day. Have you heard anything from any political leaders?
No. So far, nothing. Just police here and city news and all the news over here, and they're trying to get some information, but nothing from the politicians.
My theory is that with mass immigration, you're bringing in a vast number of anti-Semites from violent cultures where terrorism is normal. That's not the Canadian way, but maybe it's becoming the Canadian way through immigration. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I think they should really look into immigration, and then they should bring people who wants to be, who wants to work in Canada, who wants to be good in Canada, and not bring guys who wants to do problems and terrorist attack and some hatred. To bring the hatred to the city is crazy.
Yeah. I talked to a few people outside the synagogue that was attacked, and I bumped into Avi, who's with a neighborhood watch group called the Shomrim, and he's agreed to talk with me. Nice to see you again. I see you from time to time. Before we go further, tell our viewers, what is Shomrim? In Hebrew, that means sort of guardians, but what does it mean in real life?
We're essentially a neighborhood community watch organization dedicated to helping the Jewish community feel safe while continuing to work with the police and being that sort of middleman between the community and the police when there's sometimes resistance of reporting incidents. Similarly to what we saw last night, when we got a phone call about both incidents that had transpired, one being outside the synagogue and one being outside of, or driving just north of here. The victims didn't understand the severity of what had transpired and did not know if that was something that they needed to report. And after being able to explain to them that given the severity of what had transpired, we were then able to have them come meet us and engage the police for them to be able to facilitate a report, something that your average individual doesn't expect to have to deal with. But unfortunately, they had called us for guidance, and us understanding the severity and continuing to work alongside law enforcement had them come and give over their information. And we're being told that as a result of all that, someone has been arrested. We don't know more details of that yet. I'm assuming, given the fact that it happened outside of a synagogue, there is some hate motivation to what had transpired, but I'm sure in the coming days more will come out.
I can understand how that can be if someone is shot at, or even if they're hit and something stings, but if they don't know the larger picture, they may not even realize that they're being attacked.
And that's why they didn't understand the severity and didn't realize that this is something that needs to be reported and dealt with as soon as possible.
But you can confirm, you've been talking to police, you're sort of like a police liaison, you can confirm someone has indeed been arrested.
I can't confirm from the police because I've not heard that. It's
right.
What people in the community have told me so
right.
far. There's a lot of speculation on social media and whatnot. I'm waiting to hear from the police once that becomes public. Mm-hmm. I'm hoping, fingers crossed, that they get who is responsible for this.
Well, if they have the driver's license, that's certainly a very important clue. Now, the police are here with their vehicles. They say it's sort of a show of force, but it's broad daylight, and it's a PR move. I don't think it obviously hasn't stopped things. There's been 3 shootings in the last week, if I'm not mistaken. These are not gang shootings. This is an anti-Semitic targeted crime that I think is a form of terrorism. What is the solution? Do you have any advice? I mean, having police drive around the next day, I don't think that's going to solve it.
They were here from the start of when the report was made. They were on scene within less than 30 seconds of us getting off the phone with 911.
That's good to hear, but let me change my question then. How do you prevent it? The police responded quickly. I'm glad to hear it. How do you stop this thing from happening in the beginning?
I think this goes way above police, and this goes back to our politicians in strengthening laws that will not allow repeat offenders out and that will scare people into committing offenses before they do if there were some punishments, as opposed to getting arrested and getting back out on the street and be able to continue this revolving door that has been going on for far too long.
As I was walking away to go to my car, a local resident honked and as he was driving by and said he goes to that synagogue. And I said, look, that synagogue's unmarked. How would someone other than a professional know that's a Jewish target? And he said, could be, but there are anti-Semitic groups that are publishing online lists of every Jewish synagogue, every Jewish school, every Jewish summer camp. So there is this terrorist-style attack, but it could be just a lone wolf who says, oh, I can do this myself because I'll use these online resources put up by these anti-Semites telling me where the schools and synagogues and camps are, and that I'll be like as if I'm in the IRGC terrorist group. I'll just do it on my own. I think that was a good point, and I think it's pretty gross that there are people making lists of Jews. They're the kind of people who would have turned in Anne Frank to the Nazis, but we're in 2026 in full color in Toronto, Canada. Anyhow, so when I came here to this synagogue and school, I was sort of lingering outside, and a police officer tipped me off to the fact that inside was a gaggle of politicians. Now, they didn't say who, so I got one of the kids to let me in and sort of show me and lead me through this to a room where I saw Olivia Chow, the mayor, sort of Canada's Zoran Mamdani, and Michael Kerzner, the Solicitor General, that's the provincial cabinet minister in charge of police. And they were meeting with a small handful of the rabbis from the school. Now, I stood there and I took out my phone and I was filming, and then when they detected me, they all freaked out. And the mayor demanded I get out of there, and they shooed me out because she did not want to be seen with the city's Jews. Isn't that weird? She publicly refuses to go to Jewish events. She refuses to go to the annual Walk with Israel. She refused, like, if there's anything Jewish, she is terrified to be seen. Is it because she's anti-Semitic personally, or is it because her voter base is anti-Semitic? It really doesn't matter which of those is true, or if both are. She was terrified that I managed to get a quick shot of her there, and I was waiting out back here. She got into a tinted vehicle and sped away. She did not want any of her voters to know she was even talking to those yucky Jews. Can you believe it? So if we can't talk to Mayor Chow, we can talk to Mayor Weinstein, spelt a little bit differently, M-E-I-R. You're the real mayor of these parts. What do you make of the other mayor refusing to even, like, she won't even be seen. She doesn't even think it's a PR win to stand with the victims of the shooting because she's so obviously on the side of the shooter.
Yeah, well, that fear that she has of standing with the Jewish community publicly is what's going to fuel even more attacks against the Jewish community. We have synagogues being shot at. This one last night was shot at, Jews standing outside. One is injured, in fact. We had a Jewish man at Winderley Park that was gunned down execution style, 5 bullets. This community is in complete shock right now, and it's only getting worse. Hamas is listed by the government of Canada as a terrorist organization, and yet these Hamas supporters in Toronto, they're very public about it. They fully support Hamas. They stand with Hamas leaders and take selfies. They promote the ideology of Hamas. But the mayor just seems to embrace them and says, yes, you could march in the Jewish community, you could threaten the Jewish community, and the result is bullets.
Well, I mean, like Mark Carney, like Doug Ford, they can do the math. There's a maximum of 400,000 Jews in Canada, and they're pretty tame, but there's at least 2 million migrants to this country who are explicitly anti-Semitic. That's not vetted for. And by the way, this isn't just my opinion on the outside. Hank Idzenga, a very senior former commander at the Toronto Police, says it's infiltrated in the police. And he actually said if you call the Toronto Police to report an anti-Semitic hate crime, he says there's a real chance you're talking to someone who supports anti-Semitism on the inside. The anti-Semitism is coming from inside the police.
Yeah, absolutely. We had a case of 2 Muslim police officers that were gloating right after October 7th on their own podcast, on a police podcast actually, and they said that October 7th was wonderful for the Islamic community because many people came back to Islam.
It's funny you say this because, through social media, a lot of people after October 7th started learning about Islam.
They did, yeah.
And they said, okay, what is it with the religion that why is it so hated?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Why are they being attacked all the time? So people say, you know what? Let me learn about Islam, and there have been a lot of reverts through this whole process.
Anyways, by the way, Michael Kirstner, the Solicitor General, promised he would talk to me afterwards. He didn't keep that promise. Anyhow, the Deputy Chief of Police was dispatched to have an impromptu press conference, and they set up on the corner there, and I went there. And the first person to speak was the Deputy Chief, and he gave a bit of an update on things. And I had some questions for the Deputy Chief, and I thought I'd start off with the most simple question. Yes, I'm interested in this detail or that detail, but really, I've been to half a dozen of these synagogue shootings now.
Good afternoon. Today we're here to provide an update on two very troubling incidents that occurred over the past week, both targeting members of Toronto's Jewish community. On April 30th, 3 individuals were walking in the area of Bathurst Street and Lawrence Avenue West when they were shot at from a vehicle with an imitation firearm. All 3 victims sustained minor injuries, and the suspect fled the area in a blue SUV. Last night at approximately 10:45 p.m., officers responded to a second similar incident. 3 people were standing outside the synagogue behind me when they were shot at from a passing vehicle, again with an imitation firearm. 1 person was struck. The suspects fled in a blue SUV. These incidents are deeply concerning, particularly because the victims were visibly identifiable members of our Jewish community. Early this morning, approximately 8 hours after the second incident occurred, search warrants were executed as a residence and a vehicle in Vaughan. An 18-year-old man has been arrested and charged with various weapons offenses. Evidence was also seized, including 2 gel blaster imitation firearms.
Isn't the obvious question not a detail about this shooting or that shooting, but isn't the obvious question, are you even able to protect Toronto's Jews anymore? And I don't mean from hurt feelings crimes. I mean from gun crimes. I mean from being murdered, from being shot at on the street. And here's how that went down. I have a question for the Deputy Chief. I've been about a half a dozen of these press conferences. The other day, a Jewish man was murdered execution style not far from here. Almost every day, there's a shooting of a Jew. A former senior officer in your police force says that anti-Semitism is now rooted within the police. At what point will you admit that you're either unable or unwilling to protect Toronto's Jews?
So I would ask everybody that's here today to focus on the investigation at hand. We're not going to be discussing.
Why can't you stop these things?
We could please just discuss what we're talking about.
I don't take direction from you on what I can talk about. I want to know if you can protect Toronto's Jews. Why can you not protect Toronto's Jews? Like, you're literally not going to answer that question. That's the basic question we're all here to answer. You don't have an answer? The shooter the other day, the 17-year-old shooter, why was he not charged with a hate crime as well? Why was the 17-year-old not charged with a hate crime? Officer, Deputy Chief, why was the 17-year-old not charged with a hate crime? Like you said, the hate crime was involved with that one. Why would you not charge him with a hate crime?
Our news conference.
Well, I'm not concluded my question, so why won't you answer whether or not you're even able to protect Toronto's Jews? Like that's the most basic, serve and protect. Have you given up on protecting Toronto's Jews, sir?
Sir, we're here to reassure this community.
Why are you speaking for the chief? Are you the chief's boss? Or the deputy chief just doesn't know what to say?
Yes, sir.
Are you able to protect Toronto's Jews? It's a pretty simple yes-no question, and I would imagine that you would say yes. But you just simply haven't been able to.
Sir, our officers are deployed every week and every day in communities that are experiencing disproportionate violence.
It's not fixing things. It's not stopping the shootings.
Well, we made an arrest last night, an investigation very quickly. It's because of our deployments in the area that assisted in making this arrest.
Do you need the OPP for help? Will you ask for help from the OPP or RCMP?
This conference has ended, sir.
And I'm not done answering questions because they haven't been answered properly. Run away. Run away. Bravely run away. What a coward. Imagine refusing to answer the most basic question of whether or not you're able or willing to protect Toronto's Jews. Just say yes. Just say you can. I mean, we know it's not true, but just say it. He wouldn't even say it. Just incredible. He ran away. Look, if you ask the question, are you unwilling or unable to protect Toronto's Jews? I can think of two answers. The first is your PR answer, which is, no, I reject that. Of course we're going to protect Toronto's Jews, like all communities, and we'll do everything necessary. You can see we made an arrest on this, and we'll, like, you can give an answer that is politic. You can give an answer that the police chief is proud of. Oh, look at him out there fighting for the cops in the community. He didn't say that. Okay, well, the other alternative is to say, no, actually, we can't keep Toronto's Jews safe. We need some help. We need more resources. We need more cops on the street. We need to borrow some police from the Ontario Provincial Police, the OPP, or even the RCMP or CSIS. By the way, those are ideas put forward by some of the local city councillors who are here. So you could say, yes, we can protect Jews, or you could say, no, we actually are having a lot of trouble protecting Jews. Instead, he bravely ran away. He ran away. If you're terrified of me, I think you're going to be terrified of anti-Semitic felons with guns, don't you think? Anyways, I came back, and Michael Kersner had made his escape, so he didn't have to answer questions like the deputy police chief. But then there was a bit of a press conference, and there were 3 city councillors, and I've seen them before. I saw them at the last synagogue shooting. In fact, when I greeted Mike Cole, I said, I saw you at the last synagogue shooting. It's almost like saying, hey, I saw you at the last wedding, or I saw you at the last funeral. No, imagine the only time you see someone is at synagogue shootings. That's a sign of distress, isn't it? This seems to be happening on a frequent basis. What can we do to stop it?
Well, you know, from day one, I've said I can't direct the police, okay? I'm not supposed to. But I've said that this is not a Toronto issue by itself. And I've called for a emergency anti-Semitism on the ground task force with the RCMP, OPP, and the Toronto Police to take this as really, these are acts of terror, really. Like, do we have to wait till these guys have real rifles or guns? So I was just saying, it is not normal business. So I don't care even if we get the cops to walk up and down with a foot patrol on Bathurst Street, whatever it takes. And we can't wait for legislation and platitudes. Just kick some ass. That's all I'm saying, okay? In plain English. And if I were to grab one of these guys driving by, shooting at people, I don't know what the hell I would do. I don't know what I would do.
You've been very supportive of the Jewish community. I saw you at the last synagogue shooting, which is a terrible thing to say. Hey, I saw you at the last synagogue shooting. But it's becoming so frequent. I poked my nose in the synagogue, and I see the mayor is in there right now. But when she saw me, they kicked me out. She didn't want to be seen in public. She didn't want to be recorded. And I respect she may have some private things to say. But I'm worried that the mayor does not stand as solidly with the community as you do. Is this an incorrect perception on my part?
Well, you know, the mayor has left a lot of things wanting, that's for sure. And I think that she should have taken a stronger stand in defense of this community, because it's Toronto. It's, you know, so, but all I know is that, to me, it's much bigger than the mayor. This goes because we know the Iranian gangsters are funding this kind of stuff. We know they're orchestrating these demonstrations, which fuels more sort of confidence in these thugs. So it's bigger than Toronto, and that's why I've always said we need a heck of a lot more. This is not business as usual. This is like intimidating people, frightening people, angering people. A whole community is under this threat. Yeah. And so that's why I'm saying we got to go way beyond the mayor, way beyond Toronto Police, and let's really take this on. You know, I just have had enough. I've had enough.
Last question for you, and thanks for talking with me. I know in the past you've mentioned that perhaps other police could supplement the Toronto Police. There's the OPP, that's the Ontario Police. There's even the RCMP.
And CSIS, God forbid.
Right.
They're missing in action.
Anyhow, he and James Pasternak, and then there's a third one in their trio. They all say we need help, and one of the interesting things, and you'll see this in James Pasternak's remarks, is he repeatedly says, look, this is more than just a city policing issue. These are foreign-funded, terrorist-backed agents, provocateurs, and criminals. We need a national level response. I think that makes a lot of sense. If you were fighting with an Iran-funded professional violence committer, you need more than your local beat cop. And how about say that? And that's what I would have put to Michael Kersner had he not bravely ran away from me before he had promised me he would do an interview. Why are you not supplying the Toronto Jewish community and the broader city with more policing help? Well, it's sort of obvious. It's a milder version of what's wrong with Olivia Chow. Look, they can count. There are more anti-Semites in Canada now than Jews, by far. And they don't want to do anything to upset the sensibilities of the anti-Semitic community. Look, Councillor, do you believe that the Toronto police are able to protect the Jews of the city?
I think we're under-resourced. I think it's a very thin force. I've always argued that it needs at least another 1,000 officers, 5,500 officers for a force for a city of 3 million is totally inadequate. Chicago has 3 million people and they have 11,000 officers.
Councillor, what do you think?
I think, as I said, the police do a great job on local issues. This is internationally funded, inspired, motivated. So we need the RCMP to do their job. We need the OPP to do their job. It's more than a local Toronto police issue. Chernis Lynn is our other councillor who's had a synagogue fired at, like I have.
I've had one synagogue shot at and one synagogue that's been vandalized 10 times over the last 2.5 years. So this is happening not just at Bathurst and Lawrence, not just at Bathurst and Shepherd. It's happening across our city, and everybody needs to be concerned. And while I'm very happy to see the uptick in arrests that we have seen from the Toronto Police Force, I think they are doing absolutely everything they can. And I'm happy to see more charges being laid, and we have seen an uptick in charges being laid. I would also echo, quite frankly, the call that Michael Kersner, the Solicitor General, made earlier. I'm not in the provincial government, but I have been saying this repeatedly. We need every Torontonian to care about what is happening to the Jewish community in Toronto. That is the basic premise of a democracy, of a civic society, that everybody is able to be who they are in the city of Toronto, practice their faith, go to their community, go to church, go to mosque without being accosted, without being harassed, without being shot at. So
But that really only happens to the Jews.
well, you know what? If
Anyone
it
else being shot?
to Jews, everybody needs to care. And you heard that call from the Solicitor General earlier, that we need everybody to come and encircle the Jewish community and say, what happened here is not right. We do not want this in Toronto. And we get the Toronto we create. It's time for Torontonians of all stripes to stand up and speak out about what is happening. And I have to say, I am very happy that the mayor was here earlier today. We need to see her out every time something happens. We need to see her speaking out for the Jewish community, because the Jewish community, when it is under attack, basic freedoms are under attack for all of us. Thank you.
But the mayor came in the back door.
Stephanie Smythe from St. Paul's, just to the south, with a large Jewish community.
Thank you so much, Councillor Cole. This is something of deep concern to all of us, not just the Jewish community. We have a large Jewish community in Toronto, St. Paul's. That is living in fear day after day. This is another example why I'm glad Toronto Police were able to make a quick arrest in this situation. However, we have a Solicitor General who can work harder to ensure arrests are made and charges stick, and that real progress is made in fighting anti-Semitism in Toronto, in the province of Ontario.
I mean, look, just a day or two ago, Mark Carney, the Prime Minister, got on the phone with the terrorist leader of the PLO, Mahmoud Abbas, and pledged again to support Palestinian sovereignty with no preconditions. It's just absolutely shocking. I mean, listen, he said he'd arrest Benjamin Netanyahu on sight for war crimes. Canada is no longer in the column of the good guys. We're not with the allies. We're not with the democracies or the peacemakers. Under Mark Carney, Canada is with China and Hamas. And I'm in the center of it here in Toronto. Wouldn't have thought those words would be said, but this is the most anti-Semitic, violent city towards Jews in North America. Prove me wrong. That's my report for the day. Until next time, on behalf of all of us at Rebel News, to you at home, good night, stay safe, and keep fighting for freedom.